What an amazing conference this has been. My head is spinning, and it's so full. And I'm going to invite everybody just briefly, I don't want to lose you, but please stand up and just stretch, move around. Don't, at this point, talk to your neighbors, just because we'll have a wonderful break when you can network then, and we'll be talking again after the break. But I know that's so much to take in, and I'm very excited about sharing with you what we've been doing in Gulfport. So what's so exciting about talking to you about Gulfport on the Edge is that it's really a lived experience of what so many of you have been talking about, or what we've been learning about as applied civic engagement. And so the reason I want to give this presentation, how do I move this forward, Dean? Well, I'll just say some of the reasons that I want to give this presentation is to serve as a real-life example of applying all these practices that you've talked about. And we certainly did have a lot of lessons learned that you've talked about also as being important to our, there we go. Yeah, so we wanted to give you a case study, and we used World Cafe, among other methodologies, as a way to have civic engagement and engage people. So we'll be able to show you how we did that. And we wanted to do that to foster the connections and build trust among neighbors and residents of Gulfport. We wanted to crowdsource and document information on how people were thinking. And we certainly wanted to encourage civic engagement. I am a proud member of the League of Women Voters, St. Petersburg area, and it's so exciting to be part of that particular group, and so we wanted to bring that to our community. We also want to inspire you and think about, are there things that we did that you might want to do in your own communities, or as you're working with groups, that you can recommend. We want to demonstrate what people are capable of doing, and we want to recognize the efforts of our city councilors, our residents, and our city itself. So some of you may be wondering, well, where is Gulfport? Let me show you. Let's see, this chair is actually in the way. Right now, you are here, right there. That's where we are right now. Gulfport is 2 miles west, and it's its own municipality. We have, our government is, thank you, Dean. I'm going to give you just a high-level demographics, and these are 2019 census information, but we're about 12,000 people, and these are the full-time residents, because we also have snowbirds, of course. So in the summer, it's a little quiet. In the winter, it's very lively. We have sailors. We have, as you might have seen on the map, you might not, I didn't leave it up there very long, but we are right on a bay. So we have a lot of people coming in and mooring there and staying for whatever the time frame is that you can stay. And we have other transients that are visiting, family and friends, visitors and neighbors. Our median age in 2019 was about 58. So while this picture may not be totally representative, I can tell you from my own subjective observation, we seem to be getting younger. We are attracting young families. Now when I look in those baby carriages that people are pushing, I actually see babies, not dogs. We are a very dog-friendly town, and almost everybody has dogs. I'm wearing my Gulfport outfit. We're really big on tie-dye down there, just saying. Okay, so I just want to give you an overview about government, because it was to the city council that I made a proposition that we do something to bring people together. Our mayor serves for 3 terms. We have 4 city councilors. They represent 4 wards. Oh, by the way, our town is 2.5 square miles, just to give it a size. We're not very big, and we're all together. We're really close. We have a professional city manager who does the administration of the city, and he has a professional staff. We have our own police force, we have our own fire and emergency, and we have our own sanitation. We also have There's so many other things that we have. We have a marina, we have a wonderful library, we have an arts and culture center, lots going on. So I also want to tell you about our facilities. We have this beautiful ballroom, the Gulfport Casino. It is not a gambling casino, it is a beautiful gathering space. And that's where we actually held these 3 community conversations. It's a beautiful ballroom. We have lots of events there. It's right on the water. We have a recreation center and a beach, culture centers, marina. Okay, so you can read that, but lots going on. Lots of wonderful things happening in Gulfport. However, remember what happened in 2019 and 2020. I also want to tell you we have a lot of educational institutions, including a law school, a high school, Montessori, elementary and Montessori schools, and we have some private schools as well. So lots of options for our children. I look forward to having our public school improve its grades, and it seems to be moving in that direction. And we know how to have a good time. We have all kinds of art walks and parades and festivals. Almost every weekend there's something going on. So again, very lively, and we take pride in saying keep Gulfport weird, because we feel that we're very unique in that regard, and we really have a lot of character. And we're doing this by doing good. So why do we need Gulfport on the Edge? Well, we had a pandemic. We have all the issues that any city, any municipality, any community might have, and on top of that, because we're waterfront, we have the fear of hurricanes and flooding, which ironically brings people together, but not necessarily the way we would always like it to happen. So the idea of Gulfport on the Edge was, as we were emerging from the pandemic and that isolation, and we knew that there was a lot of discourse, which is putting it nicely, political discourse and challenges, because our town we're red, blue, we're not just purple. We have all kinds of people that come in and are there and have their own thoughts, and we want to foster community with diversity, and that's diversity of political opinions as well as race, age, and all the other demographics. So we were emerging into the post-pandemic realities, and this seemed like a really good time to bring people together. We had the changing demographics of younger people moving there. Gulfport was being discovered as a great location, and at the time, things were still relatively affordable. That's changing. Leadership in the city, not just political leadership, but lots of organizations were really struggling to have people in succession positions. We had leaders who were serving in their political roles, but we had an election that didn't happen because nobody ran against the incumbents. So where's the leadership pipeline? The Chamber of Commerce at times has had problems getting people to join their board, other organizations too. Where's the leadership? And where's the alignment so that they can be effective? So we saw this as an opportunity to harness the energy and the knowledge and the experience of all these great people that live in Gulfport. And we wanted to do it in a way that brought people together, that could get them to be creative, share ideas, and do it in a way that was really focused and we could document it. So you're going to recognize all the things that were swirling around Gulfport. We were in a nice little friendly bubble, but these were the kinds of things that surrounded us at the time. And unfortunately, they are still very much occurring. So the purpose of Gulfport on the Edge was to host 3 events that would bring people together to share their knowledge, their energy, and their resources, to build connections and develop leadership skills, to increase involvement in the organizations that were there, and to create a shared vision of the future. So this was the idea that I brought to the City Council. And I thought, they're going to be so excited about this. What a great opportunity. Here are citizens that are coming forward and they want to get together and talk and bring their creativity to City Council. We can use this information as we do our own strategic planning, right? Well, not so much. They were cool. Response would be generous. They really did not, the feeling was that this was not something that they were ready to get behind. And while I was disappointed, and the other people that were working with me also were, the timing clearly wasn't right to make this happen. Fortunately, one of the city councilors, April Thanos, who's here with us today, saw this as an opportunity, and she decided that she would use her 4 town halls as a way for us to bring in the World Cafe and the conversation. So she became our sponsor of these events, and with these being town halls, we also got the facilities of the city, which was amazing. So what we did is we had 3 events, and I'll explain those in a little more detail, that were inclusive, interesting, and focused, and safe. And that's what, I think you've had an experience of that now yesterday. Some of you for whom this is a new experience, the new way of crowdsourcing information, a way of building connections. We did that on a really grand scale. We did document the information. It wasn't, this was not a funded research process. We did not have the ability to really do the kind of research that we've been learning about today and yesterday. So we really just did this in a fairly qualitative way. And we did gather a lot of information, and we did pull it together, sort it, and we have it documented to be used, but it's not the kind of qualitative or quantitative research that a lot of you are engaged in. And that wasn't really the point, quite frankly. The point was to meet the neighbors, to connect with community groups, to identify resources for resiliency, because that really is a top of mind topic for a lot of people. We had to evacuate during Idalia, for instance. We're 9 feet, our house is 9 feet above sea level, so we are in an evacuation zone. So it's very real. And there's signs around town about where past hurricanes have come. And there's some serious flooding there. We made, with Idalia, we made the front page of the New York Times with some of the scenes from that. We're a very picturesque community, and with boats up on the beach that have been washed up there, we made for a good copy. But it's not something that you really want to have to live through. So who was involved in this? Well, what was really exciting was that we had a production team that was about 30 people that stepped forward to volunteer to put on these events. And what was interesting about that, of those 30 people, at least a third of them came from just 2 blocks around our house. So talk about hyperlocal organizing. And there's really something to be said when you bring neighbors together to do something. I think Lindsay, in talking about moving the League of Women Voters office to the Sanderlin Center, I mean, that's really about putting ourselves in the midst of the community that we want to make a difference with. Well, our team came from just a few blocks around, so we were neighbors, and this gave us a reason to get to know each other. It was, as I mentioned before, it was sponsored by Ward 1 City Councilor April Thanos, and it was supported by the City of Gulfport, and it did involve lots of community and service organizations. Now, we would have loved to have even more involvement, but basically about 100 people showed up at these 3 different events. So that was good turnout. We're very happy about that. We would have loved even more, and we would have loved more from other wards. So a lot of the people came from not April's ward so much as another ward because it was close to the downtown, and those are the people that are probably the most engaged, if you will. But it's a start, right? So, and the people that came were residents, they were business owners, they were civic leaders and community leaders. We did have some youth, we did outreach, we tried to get more young people involved, and certainly in the future we'd love that. We'd also would have loved more media involvement, and some did cover us, so that was great. So let me go through the 3 events, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of an experience of what we did there. So hopefully you'll enjoy this as well. When you're going on a journey, what's among the first things that you want to determine? Anybody? Or let's just say you're out hiking. What's really important to know? Pardon me? How long it's going to take. What else? The weather, that's important. But what if you're already out there and you're trying to navigate the landscape? What's important? The first thing you need to know, where you are, right? You got to know where you are in the landscape. So that's what our first theme was finding common ground. And for this, and I'll go into some details. So we did that in November of 2022. The second one, let me go back one. The second one, we went up 30,000 feet and looked at the trends and forces that were impacting our town, just to really give people a sense that it's not just the cracks on the sidewalk in front of your house or the dogs or the neighbors or whatever. Let's go up and look at all the different dynamic forces that are and will be impacting our region and our town, and that we did in January of this year. And then the last one that we had, we took people out into the future to the year 2030, and we did that in April, so that was the last of the events. So let me just give you a quick overview of what we did, knowing that the way it was set up was very much the way you're set up right now, at tables. We had hosts that we had trained, and the hosts were really there to, just like any facilitator, to be sure that everyone had a chance to speak, that the focus was on the topic that was chosen, and that we were able to actually elicit good information and capture it while the conversations were happening. So the first event, we had tables set up in a simple spot or SWOT analysis format. We had tables where people could sit if they loved Gulfport and they couldn't stop talking about all the wonderful things, the strengths of Gulfport. So we got a catalog of what are all the great things about Gulfport. Now, I also know that we have people in Gulfport that really are problem-oriented, and we had tables for them too, and we encouraged them to go take all the things that they knew were problems or issues. Please go to those tables, and that's the topic that you'll be able to talk about and capture. What are the problems that Gulfport has? And then for those that were more future-oriented, they had opportunities to sit at tables that looked at what are some future opportunities and what are some future threats to the town. And again, this is familiar for people who have done strategic planning or anything like that, but for some of these people, this was a new format. Now, with 100 people, 4 topics, you could get a lot of repetition. So we added a few more tables that just looked at uncertainties. And that was an interesting conversation because we didn't know what would emerge from that. But they too had some very interesting information that came out of that. And it was just a way to engage people. And the energy that came out of each one of these events, but this was the first one, was palpable. People were so excited to be, first of all, able to sit across the table and have a conversation with somebody. Now, granted, some of the people were masked still, and that was okay. In fact, it was a good thing. And what was most exciting was that people were meeting people that they didn't know before they had come. We did a quick demographic sort of test, just asking people to stand if they'd lived in Gulfport for over 25 years, from 10 to 25, then 5 to 10, and then less than 5. And what was interesting is that it was a fairly evenly distributed group of people. And it was just fun for people to see that folks at their table, if they were relatively new, that they might be sitting at the same table with an old-timer. And so much of this World Cafe information is shared through stories. So people got to share their stories, and that was very exciting. The second event, let me ask you this. Do we have any sailors here in the town? Okay, good. So back to that question. Before you set out, what do you want to know before you set sail? And I think you said it before. The weather. You need to know what kind, you may be going out one way or the other, but you do need to know what the weather is. And similarly, before you start moving forward or planning, it's important to know what are the dynamics, the changes that are coming down the pike, because we can't be just planning and looking through the rearview mirror and think that we can go forward. Likewise, we can't just look at what's happening currently. We have to really start to look 30,000 feet up, and what are those dynamic forces that may be impacting our town. Now, it was great that we're a sailing town, so that sailing metaphors really work. But I think you get the point here, that what we're looking at are the trends and forces. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. So this was the illustration that we used, and really looking at Gulfport and the region as our focus, we had the table set up really looking at what are those different areas, and had people talk about what are the trends in each of these different things. So in addition to the ones that you see up here, there were things like hospitality. Our town has a lot of restaurants and music venues and those sorts of things. So hospitality is really big. What are some of the other demographic forces that are impacting our town? So people got to select what topic they wanted to focus on. I'll tell you right now, I'm used to working with government, business, healthcare leaders, and this is easy stuff because they are reading trends magazines, they're watching the trends. To talk to residents about trends was a little harder, and so our facilitators had to be very gracious, and while they encouraged people to go up to that 30,000 feet, they did at times have to just let the conversation roll the way it was rolling, and recognize that the most important thing in this case was not necessarily to know and get all that information down, but really help people strengthen that glue, that connecting glue of neighbors getting to know neighbors, building that trust, so that as we do face what the inevitable challenges are going to be, whether it's climate change or other kinds of challenges that we may have in our town, that the trust will be there, that we'll have a stronger fabric that holds us together. And then, on our third one, we went out to the future. We took people out to the future, and again, I'm gonna ask you to think about what's, in your experience, something that really brings people together? Food, yes, food is a great thing, and we did have some food. We used music, and I'm very fortunate to have, my husband is a musician and a songwriter, and I he brought himself. I asked him to come and share with you one of the songs that he wrote about Gulfport. And in this way, you'll get a little bit of a flavor of what this little town can be, and you'll also get a chance to sing along because it's got a very catchy chorus that I'm sure you'll all get, and this is one of those things that will wake you up this morning. So this is my husband, Berkeley Grimble, and he's got the Gulfport song. What do you think? And you can all sing along.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ingrid, to describe what a wonderful little town Gulfport is, and I tell people I never imagined I could have as much fun as I'm having in life now, and it's largely because of being, first of all, married to Ingrid, and secondly, being in Gulfport. So. There's a little bitty city on a little bitty bay. Folks like to come and they like to stay. Each face has a warm and friendly smile. Come for a week, stay for a while. There's little bitty houses painted blue and pink. People care what you feel, but not what you think. We like to sail, but not too fast. Another day in paradise, make it last. Wanna count my blessings to be here, raise my voice and arouse and cheer for Gulfport, Florida, my hometown.
This is the chorus.
Gulfport, Florida, she never lets me down. Casinos for dancing, not for dice. Sunsets like a painting in the skies. And music pours from every door, keeps me coming back for more. There's lots of strollers full of pets, wearing tie-dyed sweater sets. No other town can compete with witches dancing in the street. I wanna count my blessing to be here, raise my voice and arouse and cheer for Gulfport, Florida, my hometown. Gulfport, Florida, she never lets me down. All the walls are filled with art. If you want to paint, it's time to start. Travel the world and you won't find another town so fun and kind. There's a rainbow over the evening sky. Watch the glorious pelicans fly. It's a little bitty city on a little bitty bay, 'cause small is beautiful. That's what we say in Gulfport, Florida, my hometown. Gulfport, Florida, she never lets me down. Gulfport, Florida, my hometown. Gulfport, Florida, she never lets me down. Thank you. Thank you, Ingrid.
So you can imagine that that really set the tone for going out into the future. And that's not an unusual thing to happen in Gulfport. We have lots of music on the street all the time. So this last event that we did, we were taking people out to the future. And we did that, first of all, if any of you have done any kind of visualization, it really helps to kind of set the tone, ask people to kind of close or soften their eyes, and took them out to envision themselves coming into the city in the year 2030. And they could come in imagining themselves walking down to the beach or driving in their car, perhaps they're riding a bike or scooting. And then once they're down at the beach, to actually look out and just see what we see across the bay, which is the beach communities, the water, St. Petersburg. And then we had them turn around and look back at the town and gave them a few minutes to go on their own little vision quest to someplace in town that they were imagining in the year 2030, that they might want to have seen improved, evolved, changed in some way. And then have them come back in their minds to their table and share their stories. And from those stories were many, many images and many, many stories that were additive. And as we used a wonderful technique coming from the improv theater, where you just say, yes, 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 even if it's a crazy idea. Yes, 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 and so people would keep adding on to the story of Gulfport in the year 2030, which, by the way, is just in 6 years, so not so far out there. From those stories, people then started to make, and again, this is a technique that many of you may be familiar with, are vision boards. So taking images and words and pulling together shared visions of what they saw the future to be. And so some of these are right here. We covered, they thematically showed up as community engagement and resiliency. We had a lot, of course, about climate change and nature, because we have some beautiful parks and nature areas in our town. We also have an unusual character, or not so much unusual, but it's a unique character. In the song, Berkeley mentions pink and blue houses. They're usually brightly colored, and there's a lot of that kind of really whimsical feel to it, and people don't want to lose that, even as there's more development coming in. So how do we keep the character of our town? And then leadership. It was important. People saw the importance of developing leadership in our town, maybe a little more fun-loving than what we saw there. But again, we had a lot of humor. Arts and culture, big. Lots of artists and musicians in our town. And the challenge then is, now that we've got this vision, how do we bridge to that future? So that's where the conversation went. And from there, I'll just say that people really had some ideas about some projects that they wanted to participate in. It was less about the city should do this, the city should do that. It's like, I want to do this. So what were the outcomes from these 3 events? Well, during the events, we collected data, and among the things that we found was that people were operating under some inaccurate information, or they had questions that they didn't really know how to get the answers. And this is where Councillor Thanos was able to respond very quickly. She, both in using the newspaper as well as we've sent letters out to all the participants, giving them more information so that they didn't go forward thinking that the city could do something that really was more of a regional or a like just a state type of thing that's out of the city's hand. She also was able to correct people's misunderstanding about certain things, and that was also, I think, really helpful. We did surface concerns, and as you know, when people can actually talk about their concerns, that's half of it many times. They just want to be heard, so they had the sense of being heard. We captured lessons from other cities because we have people that have moved or lived in other cities, so they could bring examples of what was working there. And a lot of folks learned more about Gulfport from the event themselves and also from their neighbors, and they learned more about how the city worked. And we were able to identify innovative ideas and had recurring themes, as well as there were lots of linkages. What seemed like a lot of different topics around the table, all of a sudden, around the room, all of a sudden you saw that they were all interrelated. And then, of course, people learned about and from each other. And in that way, they discovered people who shared their concerns, shared their interests, and maybe even got them involved in some projects. So the impact, because this is still fairly recent, it's a little hard to measure the impact, but I can say right now there's already been some wonderful projects that citizens have initiated, including, as I mentioned before, the timely responses. People don't always feel that they get the responses that they want from their city leaders, whether it's the city itself or from their city councilors. So in this case, I think Councillor Thanos was really modeling what rapid response looks like. We were able to prototype the World Cafe. You know, this was a new thing for a lot of people. They hadn't had that experience. The town halls would be more typically where the city councilor would be standing up in front of the room. One person might make a comment or ask a question and be answered. So it's a fairly slow process, and you're getting the bias of the person who's standing in front of the room, and they may not even be answering the question as effectively as they might. So this way, everybody had a chance to talk. We got the information, and we were able to respond to it. And then April was able to go back, and we were able in our presentation to say, here are some of the themes that were coming up. Here's what people really want to know. And it's an opportunity for the city to say, we hear you, and this is what we're doing. And we sure hope that they'll do that, but we have yet to see. We'll see. We did get to have more of the civic and social and service groups were part of it, so we know that some of our participants ended up joining some of these clubs. And we even have a newcomers kind of event that had happened before, but now got revitalized as a result of these events. So people can learn more about the city at these quarterly events. We have more and more block parties, including an Earth Day party that again, was organized by the citizens. So these are just some of the impact. We know there's more. Oh, there's another couple that actually adopted one of the parks to do cleanup with their neighbors and also to plant trees. And in this case, they were partnering with the city to do this. So it's a citizen-led, but the city is very much supporting with their services. Okay, now the lessons that we learned. This is not going to be new to you, and we did have to relearn some of these, is that you want to get that buy-in from the key stakeholders. We didn't really have that from the city, and as it turned out, a lot of the city councilors and the mayor himself had were envisioning, and perhaps it was well-founded based on experience, particularly during the pandemic, where it was very contentious at many of the city council meetings. People came with a lot of grievance. So it was natural that they might think that we'd be showing up with torches and pitchforks after these events. And the report, of course, said something quite different. It says people love being here. We want to be part of making this community even better. And so I hope they really got that message. We did follow up and talk with each of them and hopefully overcame any of those biases that they might have come in with. We had alignment on the production team, and that's why things worked really, really well. This was all volunteer, and a lot of work got done, and people knew very clearly what we were up to and why we were up to it. And this is the kind of thing where if you are having an event, you spend plenty of time at the beginning to create that shared vision. We had a clear focus and methodology. I brought in some organizational expertise, as well as some others did. We had clearly defined roles, authorities, and responsibilities, and we did the training so that people, when they were hosts, really knew that this was not a time for them to stand on their soapbox, but rather to get everybody else to talk. And we involved, and we would have liked to involve even more, all these different groups. So I'll just put these next actions. I mentioned them already. These are the things that we'll be doing coming up. And we're going to be launching a leadership mastermind group so that we can give some people some additional skills. During the break, I'll show a little slideshow you so that you get to see it. And in preparation for what's going to happen after the break, I'd have you each think about what are some of the things that you might be taking from this whole conference that you want to start to instill or activate when you go back to your own community. So I'll just leave that one up there, and then we'll show you the slideshow. And I think I'm out of time, right? Good, okay. Okay, I can take a couple questions. Yeah, thank you. So if there are any questions, but yes, Marge.
This may actually be a question for April. Where are you? And this has to do with the World Cafe and the town hall. I'm sorry, I can't turn around here.
April, why don't you stand up so people can see you?
hold
Just
it.
stand up so people. This is April Thanos.
April, thank you. Good to see you again. You were the only council person there, right? Okay. Did you run, and because of sunshine, I'm assuming, did you have any problem, and this sounds funny, with other council members that wanted to have that kind of FaceTime with voters in that setting, or were they relieved that you kind of stepped forward and did that?
I had the feeling that they're not encouraged. They don't want to have civic engagement. They sometimes actively do things to not have it. So, and because I was doing it, a lot of them dismissed it even more. So, you know, we brought all this information back to them. They had access to all the spreadsheets, everything that we did, and I have never heard of them doing a single thing with it.
Thank you very much for your involvement.
We would have been able to make this legal by having other city councilors there in observation roles. They chose not to, and sadly, because people did ask, you know, why aren't the other ones here? And April had to explain sunshine laws, and that was the reason. Yep. Okay.
When you listed your outcomes, I know right now there's a study, and they're working on a project for 49th Street that's in conjunction with the city of St. Petersburg. Was that one, did that happen because of this study, or just happened?
I'd love to take credit for it. I don't think so. I think that's more the businesses that wanted to do that, but I hope that it's more just an overarching feel of people want to do, connect, you know, and make a difference. Yeah. All right. No more
Okay, thank you so much.
questions. Thank you. Thank
Any-
you.